Welcome everybody to this ordinary meeting of the Council. If we could start with the karakia. Yes, Councillor Johnson.
I've got a conflict with the alcohol prohibition, the alcohol policy later on as a director of Trust House.
Thank you. Any further? No further. Any apologies? We have no apologies. We do have Councillor Nelson on Zoom. Okay, we go straight to public forum, and we have Simon Rosengrave speaking to us in public forum on a project that Simon's involved in. So Simon, if you just come forward and have about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Absolutely, thanks Gary. Kia ora koutou. For those that haven't met me before, Simon Rosengrave. So my day job is the General Manager of Wairarapa Cricket. I'm actually speaking to you with a slightly different hat on today, although it is associated with Wairarapa Cricket. And I'm talking to you about what I believe is Wairarapa's best kept secret. And that is the Kia Hakinakina project that Wairarapa Cricket have been running in this district for 4.5 years. The big thing around this is that it's a project, but it's actually being established as its own charitable entity very shortly. It established its life back in 2019 under the auspice that our primary school children didn't have the fundamental skill development in that space to want to be physically active within the region. And Wairarapa Cricket were provided with the opportunity to lead this project through Nukuora, or Sport Wellington as it was at that point in time, on behalf of a range of other sporting codes. Now we had the capability and capacity to do that, so we picked up the mantle. Now that was the original establishment of the project, and since that time, so in the ensuing 4.5 years, we've created a range of different partnerships across the region in that space with some pretty awesome primary schools, and I know that there's some councillors here and some people online actually that I've been speaking to just recently around this in terms of how we're operating in their space. But for me, Kia Hakinakina is actually bigger than what it was 4.5 years ago. It's something that I believe has some significant capacity in this region to be really beneficial across the board. And I know I've just spoken around physical activity. We align play to that, and obviously we align sport to that, but Kia Hakinakina itself has evolved into something that's much bigger than that. Gary and I spoke around this probably 2 months ago now, and at that point in time, Gary said, can you please come and give some insights to council around this? It's something that we believe is really impactful. It's something that we want to continue to see grow, and I guess it's a bit of a storytell today, but also a storytell with a purpose, and I'll come to that purpose at the end of it. So like I say, at the moment we're just waiting for the Charities Commission to come back to us. We had the submission in there 12 weeks ago. They said it would be a maximum of 12 weeks. That passed yesterday. We still haven't heard back, so that's the usual alignment with that type of thing. So we're still sitting waiting for that final tick in the box for that to happen. So moving on to the next page. So sorry, there is a presentation here. There's also a PDF that's in your council documents. And if you do want to know more about Kia Hakinakina, there's a very thorough website that anybody can access, kiahakinakina.co.nz. So Kia Hakinakina, as I say, was based around physical activity in the primary school setting, and it was set up as something that was a teacher support model in its original auspice. So it was around impacting our tamariki, but impacting our teachers more, so giving them some sustainability in terms of resource and in terms of extended knowledge so that they can continue to impact the children in this region. Throughout the process of Kia Hakinakina's involvement, there's been a range of insights and there's been a range of expertise that have helped us to get it to where it is. Now, there'll be a number in this room that will be aware of Dr. Libby Patterson, who's at Victoria University and is a resident of Martinborough. Libby was very formative in the early stages of Kia Hakinakina in terms of what it looked like. So across the 4.5 years, when we support a school for 12 months of the year. So we're actually there. So if I utilise Lakeview for an example, our staff are there 3 days of the week for 40 weeks of the year, supporting their teachers in that environment across the range of their students. It is around physical activity, it is around play, but it's so much more than that. I was lucky enough just recently to actually lead a national development plan for New Zealand cricket. So I spent 2 years with New Zealand cricket leading this, and part of that was focused on cricket, obviously, and skill development within cricket, but part of that was actually focused on how do we make good people through sport. And everybody says through sport that good people are created. We actually know that that's not the case, and that there are certain things that need to be put in place to allow that to happen. I was lucky enough through that time to work with some international leading expertise, and even had the opportunity at one point in time to present to a range of lecturers in one of these spaces, which was a fantastic opportunity for me, but international leading expertise. And so what we instigated at the New Zealand cricket level was a values approach, so understanding values and how to bring those values to life. Now that's intellectual property that sits with me because that's what I took to New Zealand cricket. That's what we do within Kia He Kinakina. And one of our drives is to see how we can actually make good people through the conduit of play and physical activity. We have it, when I finished with New Zealand cricket, which is around 12 months ago, I sat back and reflected and wondered from a personal level where I wanted to go to, and I have a passion for the Wairarapa. I'm born and bred here. I believe I have a skill set that can be impactful here. We also have staff that have skill sets that can be impactful here. What can we do in this space? So with Kia He Kinakina, in the school setting, we utilise values for our tamariki to provide them with the understanding around how to become better people. We apply that as a principle to everything that we do. So at the moment, all I'm referencing is the school setting. Kia He Kinakina is far wider than that, and I'll touch on that very shortly. We also have a pillar that's based upon inclusion, and there are some really key elements within inclusion as well that we drive within the play and the physical activity concepts in terms of self-exploration, self-discovery and self-leadership. Like I say, it's based around play and physical activity, but it's play and physical activity not as everybody knows it. We have a range of resources created around this. Again, I was lucky enough to work with some international leading expertise in my time with a national organisation. We have utilised that knowledge on the ground here to create different experiences for those that are involved with what we do. We're also bound around building relationships and connections. And it's very apparent to me within the Wairarapa that there's a lot of organisations that operate in silos, that experience the same challenges that everybody else does, without actually understanding that those challenges exist, or that things can be linked, everybody can be joined together. In this space, we're trying to drive Kia He Kinakina to be something that links a range of different organisations, looking at partnerships, looking at shared outcomes, looking at how we can impact more beneficially. And just recently, in 2024, we picked up another project under Kia He Kinakina. There'll be a range of people in this room that will remember the Shift Foundation. There was a significant relationship between the Shift Foundation and Masterton District Council at one point in time. Shift unfortunately closed their doors at the beginning of this year, and they had a project that was impacting here called Puawai that had a real focus on te reo, te whare tapawha, the Māori health model. They were supporting the Puawananga, so the teen parenting unit, as well as a range of other areas. And we didn't want to see that project fall over. We believed there was significant alignment with what we were trying to achieve within Kia He Kinakina and what they were working towards. And so we took on the mantle from the Shift Foundation of the Puawai project, which now sits within Kia He Kinakina. So we've established 5 pillars that we align to significantly within the project, but within the soon-to-be established organisation. And we believe that these pillars can impact the region positively. It already has. It's not a fly-by-night, we've only just established this might be a good idea. It's been around for 4.5 years. It's built upon insights. It's built upon voice of the participants that we work with. It's built upon our access to international leading expertise. I believe this is national leading. I don't believe that anything like this is happening anywhere else in this country. And we have significant expertise, and I don't want to sound arrogant, but obviously a couple of years with a national organisation leading a new development plan. But for those in the room that may be aware of Barry Hislop, who's quite a well-known name within the Wairarapa, Barry, at the ripe old age of 78, adds his expertise into this as well. So, as I say, moving on to the next slide, we actually are around connections. We're around trying to create partnerships to be impactful. And we actually do, believe it or not, already work with the councils across the region. So through the events teams, through the open play opportunities that are offered, Kia He Kinakina are actually the support mechanism on the ground, locally led. Our staff are out there impacting people. So we work with the councils in that space. We utilise insights from the councils as well. So you'll notice coming up across the course of the school holidays that there will actually be 2 offerings offered by Kia He Kinakina solely. One of the things that we do pay attention to is what comes out of council. We gained the understanding that both McDorrow Park and Douglas Park were underutilised in terms of activity. We're actually running some activities on both of those venues across the holiday for the community. We have a really significant partnership with YMCA Central. So Kia He Kinakina this year actually picked up a partnership to facilitate the running of the YMCA building down next to St Patrick's Church on Queen Street. It's our belief now through the activity that we've been doing there that there's between 700 and 900 people per week coming through that facility utilising it for a range of different things. That's from the younger ages, so from age 1 all the way through to those that are carrying the gold card. In fact, tomorrow we're hosting our second ever gold card day, which is called Go for Gold. Nobody in this room, I can tell by looking at people, qualifies for a gold card, but you're welcome to come along and see it in action. It's around providing offerings for that age group in terms of physical activity. What can they look at? Pickleball's happening. Pickleball's the next thing that's on the right. There's line dancing. There's all sorts, and we're running those as free community events on a monthly basis to engage with that sector. So it's not just schools. We're widening our reach and broadening our impact in the community. We already work with 25 plus Warrapa primary schools. We already provide the coordinator for those primary schools for the events that they run. Early childhood settings, Pua Wananga, as I've referenced. We're now in a variety of different Wairarapa secondary schools. We do have a partnership with Nuka Ora. Obviously, they are the capability organisation in terms of physical activity. We believe we are further than that. We're not just a physical activity or play organisation. We're far more than that. And we are now establishing some relationships with Special Olympics in this region as well. So on to my final slide. One of the cool things for me is that an organisation like this actually allows us to employ some really awesome young professional people in this region that otherwise wouldn't get that opportunity. There are very few organisations in the play or physical activity space that actually have paid staff that have the ability to bring people on board. So we have recent university graduates working for us in this space that are impacting on the ground. And I think that's the key message through this. We're actually got staff that are impacting on the ground. There's a lot of organisations that talk this sort of talk and then try to find somebody else to do it. And so there's gaps that are missing. The big thing for us for Kia Hikinakina is we actually want to impact people on the ground. And that's what we're driving towards. So our wider vision is really to impact the wider Wairarapa region. My personal vision is establishing a values approach across this entire region that has shared values across the district councils, across our organisation, across other organisations, that actually helps the population of our region, and I'm talking to Masterton District Council, Masterton in particular in the first instance, in terms of their growth of understanding about what it is to become socially competent and personally responsible. So what am I after here? Obviously, when everybody comes to present to council, everybody seems to say, well, want money. To be honest with you, that would be nice in the end, but when I've spoken to Gary around this, the first thing we want is actually advocacy and storytelling. A lot of people aren't really aware that we exist or are impacting. Outside of the primary school settings, probably for the last 3 or so years, where we've been quite highly effective, there hasn't been much else in the community. So actually an acknowledgement or some understanding where we are and the ability to actually, I guess, name, recognise and alongside that understand what impact we're trying to bring. To me, money would be fantastic, but what I'm actually out looking for here is there interest from the council in establishing a partnership approach around what we're trying to do. That's really what we're after through all of this. I see councils as any other partner in this space, interested to get on get alongside us and drive this journey forwards. What can that mean? What shared outcomes are we looking for, and how do we go about doing that? And like I said, I've spoken to Gary twice around this, and I think he was fed up with me talking to him, so he said, come and present to everybody else. And really that's trying to put, I guess, into a minute sort of 10-minute period, something that's quite big that we want to make even bigger and highly impactful in this region. And thank you for the time to allow me to talk to you about it.
Thank you so much, Simon. Yeah, I've got to say, when I spoke to Simon, I wasn't aware, well, I was aware of it, but I wasn't aware of the impact this program is making, and felt that this was something that Council could have a partnership with, because it is affecting so many, it's affecting people in the community from, as Simon says, from Little East to Old East. And, you know, I make no secret of the fact we give money to organisations like Nuka Ora. This organisation to me is very local and could be extremely beneficial to council. So, you know, I said to Simon, well, hell, I'd love you to come along and talk in public forum and just let the councillors know what you're doing. And so that's where we're at. Have we got any questions for Simon? Councillor Johnson.
Hi Simon, thank you. Do you currently have a relationship with our community development team?
In terms of the events team, yes. But it's very well. We have for 2 to 3 years, but it really hasn't grown much outside of supporting through things like the open play.
So there's an opportunity there, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. And look, to be honest with you, I guess I didn't touch on it. We want to look at what public events could happen here as well. We believe we could be an organisation that could impact across a range of different things, and public events that are aligned to our core, which is play and physical activity and everything else. But bringing all those principles that we bring into those as well.
Because we do a bit in that space, obviously. So
Yeah.
be a nice marriage.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. Excuse me, it's questions only, isn't it? So, Simon, are you aware that the Lakeview School community and the Board of Trustees finds that your program to have been absolutely exceptional since you started at Lakeview School in 2019, and that your programs are tangible, they're on the ground, you've built incredibly good relationships with the staff at Lakeview School and empowering them to be better teachers in this area? Are you aware of that, and why do you think that is the case?
I don't think you need to make it into a question, Tim. I'm quite happy for you.
I have a feeling that would be framed in a different way to most questions that I would receive, Tim. Absolutely aware of that. We've got a fantastic relationship with Lakeview School. We're aware of that because we actually do gather insights. So we get our insights from teachers, we get insights from the children. Not so much the parents, obviously, we're not really in touch with the whānau around the school, but certainly in terms of the tamariki, in terms of the teachers, the feedback there is fantastic. And I actually talked to the Lakeview board about 3 weeks ago, so I knew where the question from Tim was going, and the feedback from the board was fantastic.
Thanks, Simon.
Any further questions for Simon? Councillor Holmes?
Yes, Simon, I just see you're involved with the Special Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
You do that through Idea Services.
So we have made contact with Idea Services, but there seems to be a range of disparate organisations. So Idea Services is one. So we've been working with a couple of individuals who've been driving things in their own space. Again, to me, I guess it's an illustration of how separate entities can start to function, feel isolated, not understand that there's the bigger picture there. So for us, our drive in that space is actually, we're in the initial conversation stage, and we are looking at hosting events in that space. Barry Hislop, who is an amputee himself, has a massive passion in that space. But for us, the conversations are, how do we actually bring this together so that people don't feel isolated, so they can actually share things, and I guess work with us in terms of our capacity and our expertise as well.
Good, thank you.
Joe, then Tom, then Marama. Joe?
Simon. Sorry for being late. Do you have any relationships with the kura and the kohanga around?
So Rennie, who works for us, who came to us under the Puawai project, does work in the kura, and she's actually undertaking her te reo professional development through there. Our drive would be towards having a staff member that can actually deliver our programs within that. So we have a range of resources that we've created around our approach that we're now looking at how do we bring more te reo into that so that it becomes functional in an area like the kura. So it is on our radar. We have a staff member that's got a good relationship there, but that's as far as it is at the moment.
Councillor Elena?
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Just want a bit of clarity around your organisation. Are you a standalone organisation, or are you still an arm of?
So
and if standalone, you know, what sort of entity are you? And secondly, how do you get your funding?
Yep. So at the moment, we still exist as a project. Kia Hakinakina still exists as a project under the Warrapa Cricket banner. So as much as I say I've got a different hat on, I've still got the Warrapa Cricket hat on today. Like I say, we submitted to charities to set it up, so a new trustee to set it up as a new entity, so with a new board. That was done 3 months ago. The maximum time limit on charities to then process that was 3 months. So any day I'm expecting that confirmation that there is a new entity there. At the moment, from where we sit under Warrapa Cricket, it's a range of different funding options. One of them is Tūmanawa, so that's the funding arm that comes through Sport New Zealand and Nukuora. That is a sinking lid fund, so there's always some challenges within that. Like any organisation around here, grant funding is a significant, but there's not many grant funders within this region, which puts pressure on. I referenced the conversation with the Lakeview board. There are user pays elements to what we do as well, so Lakeview committed to user pays for what's provided within there. So it's a variety of different ways to bring income in. I referenced our partnership with YMCA. YMCA pay us. They don't have any local staff to actually facilitate the use of their building. So it's a mixed model of income. Had some chats with, so Eastern and Central recently changed their strategic plan, which meant there were a range of community organisations which would suddenly miss out on funding. Kia Hakinakina significantly aligns to their strategic plan. those sorts of things I haven't been able to apply for as of yet because the new entity is not set up. However, the chats with Eastern and Central are they would like to look at Kia Hakinakina as a partner. They have a significant new fund, which is a partnership fund, but that is 12 months away from coming to fruition. I guess it's a long answer to your question, Tom, but in terms of everything, for us, I feel like we're crawling through to that 12 months when we can establish those partnership funds and really be standing on our own, because I do have staff in that who are highly impactful that want to maintain that highly impactful nature as well.
And just given the work you're doing in the schools, have you discussed with the schools? Councillor Nelson might be too happy with me mentioning this, but tapping into their staff funding if you're delivering regular...
Yeah, we did have it. This was probably a conversation 3 to 4 years ago around whether there could be an apportionment. It was through Darren Kerr at that point in time, an apportionment of what they receive that could be provided to our staff in terms of the expertise on the ground. I guess at the moment we're still seeing ourselves as that external contractor in that space, and I think we're quite comfortable with that fit, provided we can be self-sustainable and self-funding in that space. Like I say, the Lakeview Board had committed to a reasonable amount of user pays in that space that has allowed us to keep going in their area. So there's a range of different funding options, but like every organisation that I'm sure comes to council, there's challenges out in their funding space at the moment.
Just lastly, I really just want to acknowledge your values-based approach. I think it's a time in the evolution of the world that's needed more than ever, and pushing good values throughout your program is very important. So.
I guess just to extend on that too, the big thing, having worked in a sole sporting environment for 11 years, is sport is secondary, physical activity is actually secondary. It's the connections and it's the feeling of belonging that are really important. And that's our main focus within Kia Hakinakina. The conduit is through play and physical activity, but it's actually the feeling of belonging to something that's important.
Councillor Turner?
Do you want me to speak?
No, you can sit on this one.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very exciting. Were you aware that on the 28th of this month, that Children's Disability is a disability explained, which
No, I haven't been fed that at all, but would love to have the information.
yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Any further questions? Well, no further questions. Thank you so much, Simon. I think you can see that there's real interest around this council table and what you're doing, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gary. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, late items. We haven't got any late items, or have we? We've got no late items? No late items. Okay, we go straight on to page 6 of your agenda, which is confirmation of the minutes of the council meeting on August 7th. Somebody prepared to move they are true and correct record. Moved Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Bowyer. Any discussion? Put the motion, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? No, thank you. Page 19, the confirmation of the minutes from the Audit and Risk Committee meeting on August 14. Somebody prepared to move their true and correct record. Councillor Lennox, seconded Councillor Bowyer. Any discussion? All in favour, please say aye. Against? Thank you. Page 32, the confirmation of the minutes of the Awards and Grants Committee on September 4. Tim, I'll hand over to you. You there, Tim? Oh, Tim's missing, so I'll take those odds on there.
Sorry, no,
Oh,
I'm there, sorry, Gary, I was just pressing about 5
just
buttons.
confirmation of the minutes of the Awards and Grants Committee. Tim?
Yep, I'd just like to comment that it's always a real challenge responding to the applications for wellbeing and events grants with the amount of money that we have to allocate falls well short of the requests that we had. And I really do want to thank the members who worked really hard in the time leading up to that meeting, during the meeting and after the meeting in response to the many applications that we had. And I feel like we did the best that we possibly could do with the money that we had available. And I hope that all of those communities and organisations find our contribution is a significant one for them and what they're trying to achieve through wellbeing and events.
So you'd move the confirmation of these minutes, Tim?
Yep, I do move the confirmation of the minutes.
Seconded Councillor Johnson. Any discussion? I would just, before we pass that, I would just like to, first of all, thank the committee for the work that went into that. It's a hell of a thing when you don't have enough money to give out and you've got to make some very tough decisions. I'd also like to thank Tim particularly for his chairmanship of that committee. It was having done it myself on a number of years, it's not an easy committee to chair in the sense that you know you're going to be in the gun with some organisations, and Tim did an excellent job. So I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Right, we move.
Thanks, Gary.
We move to page 48, the alcohol prohibition Labour Weekend and Christmas New Year. Corin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll hand to Terry Milligan, our Manager of Environmental Services.
Oh, Terry.
to present the paper.
Morena, I'll just introduce Steve as well, Steve Cameron from Police as well. I'll take the report as read and just highlight that these prohibitions are about the reduction of harm and keeping our community safe. Previously, there was some really antisocial behaviour in the communities out there, dating back late as the 90s. There was vehicles driving all over the golf course at the weekend out at Riversdale. 2000 and I think it was 17, 18. There was a significant number of youth out at Castle Point, which caused a lot of issues, not only for their safety but for the community that was out there, resulting in a lot of clean-up the next day. We've got support from both our ratepayers associations in requesting these prohibitions as well.
Would you like to introduce? Would you like to introduce Mr.
Yes, so
Mr.
Steve
Cameron,
Cameron.
whether you want to actually say anything before we...
Yeah, morning everyone. I'm Steve Cameron. I'm normally the Prevention and Rural Manager, but Jewel Flowers, we let her go overseas for 3 months, so I'm doing the Prevention Manager's role for 3 months. But I've worked at the beach policing for the last 4 years, and just every year, like we had the 2020 after COVID, the youth out there, 400, 500 youth. The streets were littered with smashed bottles. The police vehicles had windows smashed from bottles being thrown at them. We had to retreat for a period. We've had, in the 4 years, I've had a rape complaint out there. I've gone to 2 incidents where males have been in fights and been knocked out. And alcohol causes crashes. It clogs up our hospitals, and certainly we don't want to be out there. But the ban really helps us. It's another tool just to keep a lid on it. We're constantly tipping alcohol out with youth who are walking the streets, and we appreciate the ban. Without it, we would be powerless.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions for Terry or Steve? The recommendations are on page 48. Sorry, Councillor Helena.
Yeah.
Yeah, please, Tom, if you would.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Just wondering from your perspective, being on the ground, are these prohibitions enough?
Well, without being draconian, without being a police state, it gets us through. All we want to do is get home safely, and for everyone that attends to get home. So it's a really good tool. I mean, we're seeing parents walking down the street drinking wine with their children. You know, we've got to explain to them that the ban also affects them. So we've got a roadblock which helps, because the roadblock lets us stop the traffic coming in, and if we think there's alcohol being brought in, especially with youth, they drive out there, they drink out there, they sleep in their car out there, and they drive home the next day. So it's a tool. With the roadblocks, it's another tool, and we're not complaining. We think it's enough. We shouldn't even be out there, but we're out there, and we appreciate your help.
Any further questions? There's no further questions. Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 48, moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded Councillor Lennox. Any discussion? No discussion. I'll put the recommendations. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Thank you. Thank you very much, Terry and Steve. We go to page 59, which is the adoption of the draft Wairarapa local alcohol policy and statement proposal. And Steph.
Kia ora koutou. I'm going to hand over to Sophie Bradley. She's a policy advisor on the team who's been leading on this work.
Thank you.
Tēnā koutou. Today you're considering the draft Wairarapa alcohol policy, statement of proposal as well. Since 2018 we've had a Wairarapa local alcohol policy with the 2 other district councils, and this policy is made under the Sale and Supply of Alcohol Act 2012. There's about 67 councils across Aotearoa with local alcohol policies in place, and today, if approved, it will go out for consultation from Friday through to the 20th of October. The Act outlines specifically what we can and can't include within a policy. This is included in the agenda on page 60. A local alcohol policy provides regional direction on licensing matters such as location, hours and discretionary conditions. The DLC, the District Licensing Committee, and the Alcohol Regulatory and Licensing Authority must have regard to the policy when they're making decisions on licensing matters. The policy cannot influence things like pricing. The policy has undergone a significant review, taking into consideration stakeholder feedback from licensing inspectors, the medical officer of health and police. We've also engaged with Te Hauora Runanga o Wairarapa and Destination Wairarapa as part of our early engagement, and data and information received from the likes of Te Whatuora and police are presented in the background report at attachment 3. So that will also be provided to the community as part of the consultation process. The policy has been considered by the Wairarapa Policy Working Group. We have had 2 meetings with them, and they're recommending that the 3 councils take this out to the community now to seek community feedback on the policy. They agreed to 5 key changes in the policy. One being no new off-licences near 100 metres of a sensitive site, and they've defined what a sensitive site is to include an education facility, playground, recreational facility, healthcare facility, marae or a place of worship. We've also changed the maximum trading hours for off-licences from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. now to 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. This would exclude supermarkets and grocery stores, which would maintain the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. We've also looked at our special licensing provisions. We want to provide greater flexibility around how events are structured across the year. Currently, it's 1 entertainment evening per month that is allowed, and we're proposing that the policy allow up to 12 events across the year and with a series of events, but not exceeding a period of 6 months. So just got a bit tongue-tied there. Also, we've looked at special licences in terms of alcohol-related harm for young people, and we are proposing that licences not be granted for events that are focused on children and young people, so people under the age of 18 years old. This includes events such as children's sports festivals, school galas and school kapahaka events. And the last kind of change that we're wanting to make is requiring the DLC, when considering a licence, applications to take into consideration the appropriateness of associating consumption of alcohol with driving events. So there are some driving events through the year, and we want to make sure that applicants also demonstrate they've taken practical steps to mitigate the risk of driving under the influence of alcohol as well. So they're the main 5 key changes. We've also, if you're familiar with the previous policy, it may look a little bit differently. We've also revised the format and some of the wording following a legal review, but all other provisions remain the same. The changes aim to address some of the alcohol-related harm that is experienced in parts of our communities, address some stakeholder feedback that we've received, and take into consideration general trends across a range of local alcohol policies. The policy has been considered by South Wairarapa District Council, and they've approved it for consultation, and it's going to Masterton District Council this afternoon. Councillor Bowyer and Councillor Nelson are part of the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, and I just thought I'd ask if either of them would like to add any comments.
Thanks very much for that. There was a lot of work done around this, some good discussion as to where we're heading, what we're trying to do. And the definition of sensitive sites, got that looked at, reduction of off-licence hours. Again, those events focused on children and driving, that was where we've looked at how things can be changed. And one of the things I'd like to say is that while there is no sinking lid policy around alcohol outlets within the Wairarapa, and specifically talking about Masterton here, there has been a reduction in outlets of approximately 6% in the last few years, and economics are dictating now that there's a reduction as well. So I think this consultation document is a good, robust document. It'll go out to the public, and we'll get back ideas and thoughts that we'll need to take into consideration. There is a lot of talk nationally at the moment around alcohol and how things are done. There are different councils doing things differently, and I think through that feedback we'll get a good idea of where we need to land on this. But I think this is a great document to go out for consultation.
Thank you, Craig. Right, any questions for...
I'll just add, if I can just add one thing as well.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
Gary. Just that there was quite a bit of discussion in those meetings around the supermarkets being having their hours remaining at 10 p.m. and a lot of that discussion was around the fact that because the shop is still open, if the alcohol section was closed off at 9 o'clock, whereas everything else was open until 10 o'clock, that could put significant pressure on staff in those stores. But everything else that Councillor Boyer said, I'd just like to reiterate, I agree with that. And Sophie and Steph, thanks for your presentation.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any questions? Councillor Tuta.
Thank you for your report. I find it really number 4 about young children and quite astounding that or maybe that you need something like that. You need to change or include within the policy.
Yeah, I think it helps make it clear across the 3 district councils how we approach those decisions. We were finding that across the 3 different councils it was applied differently. The licensing committee took into consideration different factors differently. This way it's really clear about what our position is in terms of young people.
But would people really want to drink it?
So my understanding is that at a sports event there was alcohol sold and licence applied, and there was quite stringent restrictions around that, but yet was a children's sports festival that received an alcohol licence. And then whereas in other areas that applications have been declined. I think this is just to make things just really clear about what our position is.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Helena.
Thank you, Sophie. Just wondering, do we have the power to be more restrictive, and if so, were more restrictions considered, perhaps no new licences, and as Councillor Bowyer talked about a sinking lid policy. I'm just wondering what the working group's thinking was around more restrictions, and perhaps why not.
The Wairarapa Policy Working Group was presented with some options around what a sinking lid policy could look like, in particular around our deprivation areas. And we also looked at the volumes of licences being issued over the past couple of years. That's what they were presented with. And then
I think what they found is when we looked at the alcohol statistics and consideration for licensing, as Councillor Moore had said, there has been some reductions already at Masterton. The areas where we saw those increases were mainly South Wairarapa, being Martinborough and Greytown, which didn't align with the areas that experienced alcohol harm and were also recognised for their contribution to local tourism. So taking that all into account, the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, they did consider the option, but didn't put forward full consideration at this stage to proceed with a sinking lid approach.
And we've provided some of that context in the statement of the proposal for the community as well.
Further question? No further questions. Somebody prepared to move the recommendations on page 5960? Move Councillor Tudor, seconded Councillor Lennox. Any discussion? Yes, Councillor Lennox.
Just in regards to the events focused around 18 years and under, I fully support that. Obviously, as a member of the committee that runs Summer Hummer, that's a drug and alcohol smoke vape-free event. And the feedback we get from parents and families and youth is that how wonderful that it's not an alcohol-focused event, and that the vibe and the atmosphere is of great friendliness, happiness, and I think the country is heading towards more of a focus around alcohol. It doesn't have to be everywhere, so it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Anybody else? Okay, I'll put the recommendations on page 5960. All in favour, please say aye.
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 Thank you very much, Sophie.
Just to note, I'm a conflict on.
Pardon?
I'm a conflict on.
Yeah, Bex was a conflict of interest there. I think that's been noted.
Yep.
Page 169, amendment to the standing orders. Members joining remotely to make up quorums. Tania.
Kia ora. This report is primarily an administrative report. Under the Local Government Act, there were some temporary changes enacted to enable us to count, well, all local government to count people who could only attend remotely as being part of the quorum. As a result of a change to legislation that is going to become a permanent fixture within the Local Government Act. So we've had to update our standing orders to align with that Act. So this paper is, like I say, primarily administrative, just bringing it to you for confirmation so that we will bring our standing orders into alignment with the legislation.
Thank you. Any questions for Tania? Seems like this one's a bit of a no-brainer. Somebody prepared to make the recommendations on
Tim
page
should move it. Tim should move it. He's online.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll move
I'll
that.
move it. Okay, good idea. Seconded. Seconded Tom. Any discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah, Councillor Bowyer.
I know this is administrative, but I actually don't agree with it. I think you should be here in person. I think you're elected to do a job, so you should be here in person. I won't be voting for paper.
Thank you, Councillor Bowyer. Any
Votes on it, even though it's administrative.
Yeah.
Councillor Johnson?
I've just got a question and a statement. One statement is that I'd hate for us all just not to turn up on Wednesdays though. So I think the preference is always physical attendance because we have much better discussions and conversations and debate, and it's much easier to deal with people face to face because body language is part of that as well. But the other thing, which is just a question, maybe somebody could come back to me, but in the standing orders, there's a paragraph which says that if you miss 4 consecutive meetings without an apology, then the position becomes vacant. So I'd just like clarification. Does that mean full council meetings? Does it mean council meetings and committee meetings? Does it mean, it's a little unclear, because to my mind we have these full council meetings once every 6 weeks, but we still meet every single week and often more than once. So the missing of 4 consecutive meetings, to me, is a bit of a grey area. So maybe somebody could come back to me.
Are you prepared to answer that? Any staff could answer?
We will come back to you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Goodwin?
Yeah, we went through that with a councillor back in 2000-ish, promoted the by-election for you.
We went all around then, right?
A councillor went to Australia, and I mean, essentially it's up to councillors. When councillors won't grant an apology to someone in 4 consecutive times, you're in trouble. But if the relationship's good enough, they can miss those meetings, and it's up to council to accept their apology.
It's up to the chair.
Or not.
It's up to the chair.
I must admit I've never been at a meeting yet where an apology hasn't been accepted, but that's interesting.
Well, Chris Mills.
Any further comment, Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, I think that there actually should be a time or an attendance amount, how many times you can be on Zoom, unless you're really ill or something like that. But I'd like to see some sort of a, I don't know how we could do it, but some sort of limit on how long a person could be on Zoom, or how many times they could be on Zoom. So it relates back to what Councillor Johnson was saying.
Thank you. Councillor Tudor?
Thank you for the report. In the report under implications for Māori, I think all we got is it was has written that it's a preference to meet Kamarri Peter Kamarri.
Okay.
And I will be supporting this, this resolution because I think it would, we need to move with the times, and I think that you do need to limit restrictions on it.
Thank you, Councillor Tuta. Any further? Councillor Helena?
Yeah, like Councillor Tuta, certainly my person has a preference for face-to-face, but it is the 21st century. Those councillors who are employed full-time will have the ability to be full-time in this space, have a far greater ability to be at all meetings. But for the rest of us, we have to sustain income in other manners, and I notice a number of councillors around here have had holidays during the council year and have come in by Zoom. So I think it's one of the more sensible things that have come out of central government in recent times, in my view, that allows online participation.
Thank you, Councillor Helena. Any further comments?
Yeah, thanks, Gary.
Councillor Tim?
Yeah, I strongly endorse this. Right now I'm at the New Zealand Principals Conference down in Christchurch, and I wouldn't be able to have given feedback on awards and grants, seen Simon Rosengray's presentation, commented on the local alcohol policy. 2 years ago, I was also at the conference down in Christchurch. I was able to share my views on the Better Up funding. Last year when I was on sabbatical for a term, I was able to attend all meetings then. I think, like Councillor Helena said, this is the 21st century, and some of us do have full-time jobs, and this is a way in which we're able to contribute as councillors, so I strongly endorse it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Any further? No. Yeah, Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, I just want to point out that this isn't about whether you can attend online or not. This is about whether you're deemed part of the quorum. So I don't think we're arguing about the merits of being able to contribute. We're just, the point of this legislation is to say it's counted in the numbers game.
Councillor Joe?
Yeah.
Kia ora. Good policy. Where did the iwi reps sit on this, in this policy? Because this has been written for councillors, elected members. We're not elected members. Where does iwi sit?
As far as the iwi representatives are concerned, because you're not members of council, you're not counted as quorum in that instance, but for the committees that you're appointed to, you do count as quorum. So if you were to attend remotely under the change to the legislation, you'd be able to be counted towards quorum for that committee.
Any further questions? Yes, Judge. Yep.
So that's fine. So do you think a policy needs to have another viewpoint around iwi representation on council and what our obligations are for attendance in person?
This particular piece of legislation is a change just to reflect the central government legislation. So at the current time, we can't have appointments as part of that quorum at council. So this is just reflecting that aspect of change in local government.
Any further questions? We have a...
Sorry, Gary, just one more if I may?
Yes,
just my comment, just following on from Bex's comment, my comment was in response to Councillor Boyer's comment. I'm aware of what this is about, but I thought Councillor Boyer's comment was quite specific and not related to this actual specific discussion point that we're having at the moment. And I thought it was necessary that both myself and Councillor Helena raised that point. Thank you.
Fair enough, Tim. Thank you. Right, the recommendations have been moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor Tom. Do we have further discussion? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
Aye.
Gary, page 257, NZTA funding for road safety promotion and footpath renewal and maintenance. Maz.
Sorry, Kane's not here.
Should we move to the next one and come back?
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay, we'll move, it's Kane doing that one as well. Okay, we'll move now then to page 270, which is the annual report 2023-24 update. David Ferris.
Thank you, Bishop. And Josie Atkin Askin, right, is a policy advisor, and she will assist in the explanation of the non-financial performance. But I'll just give you a quick introduction of the draft annual report summary that's in the agenda. It's very much high-level statements at the moment that I've been able to produce. Our team's working on the annual report document itself, but these statements won't change a great deal. It's been a challenging year. Cost increase pressures wise, so keeping a lid on our expenditure to stay within budgets. And as you'll see from the financial result, the overall total expenditure in the financial statement is 1.6 million more than planned. But we've had other income amounts that are more than planned as well, and it offsets that. And there's a very big number in the roading subsidies variances, and that is because we budgeted cyclone recovery costs of 18.8 million and have spent 13.5 million of that. So the fact that we didn't spend all of the cyclone recovery budget meant we didn't get the revenue from NZTA, their share of that revenue, of that expenditure. So that's the reason for the variance. But the bottom line, overall of 1.6% more expenditure than planned, shows that we've been able to keep it close to budgets. There's a range of unders and overs across all activities, and those are explained in the commentary in the report. The rates requirement statement shows 41.8 million, or 0.04% more spent than we budgeted. So of the rates we collected, we spent 0.4% more. We have received some more rates income than we budgeted in rates penalties, and it almost offsets it. Roading, water and wastewater are the more significant overspending or over planned rates, and we've made savings in other areas, specifically in the corporate area of the organisation, that offset some of the expenditure on the infrastructure areas. Capital expenditure of 34.34 million, which is 69% of the total budget. And a lot of that portion of that underspend is that cyclone recovery work. I suppose I'll stop there and see if there's any questions on those financials.
Any questions for David? No questions for David. So oh, sorry, Councillor.
Is that on the whole report?
Or
do you want to wait?
We'll wait because Josie has some commentary on the non-financial performance measures part of the report.
I'll wait.
Okay, Councillor Lena.
Yeah, just a clarification, David. The personnel cost, does that include elected members' costs and individual contractors?
Anything that is a salary or an honorarium. So it does include elected members. If someone's contracted on to be paid through our suppliers system, and they're their own business, and they invoice us for their time, they're a supplier. If they're on the staff payroll and they're paid a salary, even if it's for a fixed term period, then it's in the personnel salaries number. That's right. Those that are funded externally are included. So the climate change advisors, where we have funding from the Better Off funding, they're not coming from rates. They're on our payroll for a period of time. They're included in the staff budget and in the staff expenditure. So the comparison is
in those costs.
It is in those costs. Yes. Yep.
Any further questions for David? Councillor Goodwin.
Sorry, just a bit more clarification on that. So the external consultants that we frequently use for reports, they, I'm thinking of the one in the public excluded, they're not on the personnel costs, are they? No.
Not if they're contracted as a service to be delivered. It'll be procured, so we know what we're buying up front, and we're paying them as a supplier.
Because sometimes, I have heard that sometimes we do include them, no, it's included in the price of the job, yeah. Sorry.
But the likes of the Wairarapa Recovery Office comes through into our payroll, but we get funded for that through the government. So it makes our payroll look higher.
Any further questions for David? If not, Josie, do you want to?
Sure. Thank you, Council. And David, so in terms of the non-financial performance measures, most of them were reported to the Audit and Risk Committee on the 14th of August. There were 2 measures related to water that weren't available at that time. The first one is around water loss. So within our last year's annual audit, Audit New Zealand recommended a change to the approach in the way that we calculate water loss. Because the change in approach means that the results are no longer directly comparable to the results, we have applied that same methodology to retrospectively create the results for the past 2 years. So we have more of a comparison. There have also been an update to other measures which have been referenced in the report. With these updates, it means that we've ended the year achieving 35 out of our 43 measures. That's 2 more than last year. And I'll end there. Any questions?
Any questions? Right, Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, I've probably got it there, probably for David. Page 273, we mentioned about 500k, which we would go to put into the storm damage fund to boost it up again. And then it's recommending that because of overspends. So I'd just like an update on that, or whether that's to come to council. Do you want to do that first?
Yep, do that. There was several versions of the result. It's now showing it as 6,000 more rates required than we have available. So we're very close to budget. That 6,000 deficit can be funded from. It needs to be funded from somewhere, and I'm suggesting that it's funded from reducing the 500,000 that goes to the flood damage fund.
So it's only a small amount.
At one stage, that number was like 130,000, but the various moving parts have brought it down to a reasonable number. So when it was a larger number, reducing the repayment of the flood damage fund as an option. A lever I'd like to be able to pull to bring things into balance.
Thank you. Can I keep going?
Yes, sure.
The other point I make on page 273, it talks about e-waste disposal, and that we are 170k of cost. And I know that we debated this as a council on whether we would charge or whether we wouldn't. And there was a comment that let's reward good behaviour. If they drop it off, we won't charge them. Well, it's not applying our user pays policy that we have adopted for everything else. And I don't see why the ratepayers should be subsidising e-waste drop-off. And especially, I was surprised to see it was to the value of 173k. So I'd like to table that. That's another discussion that we maybe bring to the table at some time. So there isn't really a question there. And the only other question I did have on page 274, which talked about 89k more for the deferred maintenance at Trust House Rec Centre, which is a lot of money. But also my question is, have we caught up on the deferred maintenance?
Who's going to answer that?
Or you could come back to me.
I think I'll need to come back to you.
Yeah, it's just that it's a lot, and if we're only sort of just started the deferred maintenance, I like that whole no surprises policy.
My guess is we haven't caught up yet, but
Yeah.
I'll come back and confirm.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Any other questions for David and Josie? Councillor Bowyer.
Yeah, just on the urban water. It's been a year and a half now, we've all been councillors, and since then, we're going to be installing a tank at the top of Manuka Street. We still haven't done it. are we ever going to do it? Because it's obviously costing us. When is this planned infrastructure going to happen? Just keep on experiencing things.
Happy to speak to that,
Yes,
Councillor.
Councillor.
So Manuka Street is in the program, but whether we proceed with it is a question that we're exploring. We're not sure whether it is the right solution for the challenge that we've got.
So my understanding was that the original challenge was a lack of water pressure, okay? My basic understanding of water hydraulics is that pressure is a function of height with water. So if we were going to put this tank up there, the original, and I know this is not part, were we going to put the tank higher? Because just putting more water up there is not going to solve the water pressure problem, correct?
Yes, I can't answer the question about the design, but it is one of looking at a hydraulic model, which we are partway through building, is one of the pieces of that puzzle that we will adopt to determine whether that is the right solution or not.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to reiterate.
Yep.
The 173k for e-waste is pretty ridiculous.
If you'd quick, Councillor Holmes.
With regards to the tank, I thought we'd already purchased it, Mayors, because I remember questioning it ages ago, I asked Phil my concern, and I realised it's stainless steel, and I wondered if we could have had a cheaper option, because the cost was something like $800,000 for it. So, do we own the tank or do we not?
Phil, can you assist me? I just want to make sure I'm not getting confused with Manuka and Nikau Heights.
I think we talked about Nikau Heights. This is the
Same
Street.
thing.
Yeah. So, sorry, Councillor, I couldn't quite catch the last part of your question there, but the tanks are in storage.
Yeah.
The issue we have is that there is already tanks up there which are providing the hydraulic pressure, that's my understanding, not being engineered, and this was about the supply. But we are concerned that that is not the right location for them, and we're reluctant to proceed with the installation until we have a better understanding, as Ms. Celia said, of the hydraulics through there. So at the moment they're in storage. They are being just on the warranty, they're being kept under certain conditions, so they are wrapped effectively, and they are still intact, and the warranty is still run with the steel. So I'm not sure that's answered the last part of your question.
No, that answers my question. But what are the options? Like, it's all about pressure, and it's in the area of the Southie subdivision where pressure is very poor. Is that what we're trying to improve? Is it? How are we going to do it?
Phil, I'll take it if you like. I think there's a little bit more work that we need to do. There are some issues with the tanks, which we do have, as Phil says, in storage. Now that we've got our new Three Waters manager on board, who I'll introduce a little bit later, I'll be wanting him to weigh in on where we head with this. So I'm not giving you anything definitive yet, we're not quite there, but it is on the radar.
Councillor Lennox.
Thank you. Just around the wastewater, I recall celebrating as council the fact that the Columbo Road Bridge came under budget and within time, but obviously that wasn't the case around the pump blowing out the budget. Maybe I'm wrong. I just recall celebrating that was a successful project that was completed on time and under budget.
It wasn't the bridge you were talking about, because that was, wasn't it?
The bridge, yeah, the Columbo Road Bridge, but you said
The bridge, this is a pump station. So this is the,
okay, gotcha.
the sewer pump station that was rebuilt once the bridge was finished to transport the
two separate
wastewater across. And yeah, the installation of that pump station did incur more costs than we had allowed for in the budget.
So two separate projects.
The two separate projects. The bridge does carry the water, the sewer main, and therefore they had to work together to achieve an outcome.
Perfect, thank you. That answers my question.
Councillor Maria, then Councillor Johnson. No, you're right. Councillor Johnson.
Yeah, this is to do with page 277 about the water loss calculations. I'm really encouraged to see that we're going to adopt a new method of calculating water loss, because I note too that there's a line that says there's low confidence in current consumption numbers. So I know that this is a bugbear for Councillor Goodwin as well. Mm-hmm. So it's great to see that there's a solution. Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions for Josie and Dave? If not, somebody prepared to move the recommendations which we received the report on page 270. Moved Councillor Players, second Councillor Tudor. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. We now go back to page 257. Thank you very much, Josie. 257, the NZTA funding for road safety promotion and footpath renewal and maintenance, and Kane is going to be in this one. Thanks, Kane.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ka nui te mihi, ki te wiki o te reo Māori, afternoon councillors. Today's report is a brief overview of the recent NZTA funding allocation for road safety and promotion and footpath renewal and maintenance, submitted into the 2024-2027 NLTP, or National Land Transport Programme. The funding is essential for maintaining infrastructure and footpaths and promoting road safety in the district. The key update is the NZTA has reduced funding allocations significantly by 64% in the footpath and maintenance and renewals and 61% in the road safety and promotion. This is a major cut compared to our request in the NLTP. If you refer to Table 1, for example, we requested $241 million in footpath and renewals and got allocated $868,000. That's a 36% reduction. Similarly, for road safety and program and promotion, we requested $799,000 and received $309,000. Due to these reductions, the footpath maintenance and renewal program will need to be scaled down. Originally, we planned to cover about 8 kilometres of the network for renewal. Now we have to cover about 4.5 kilometres in year 1, and in year 3, about 5 kilometres approximately. Year 2 was to be allocated to the CBD project. If you refer to Table 3, this highlights the footpath budget going forward, which is $1.4 million compared to 2.4 planned. For road safety and promotion, this is managed by the Road Safety Wairarapa Council, headed by Bruce. Bruce is here today. So this will have to be scaled back to meet the funding cut as well. So despite the funding cut, we've been able to accommodate a program to implement the cost-saving measures. This is through reducing staff numbers. Bruce Pauling is scheduled to retire, so he's about to retire soon and has brought that forward slightly. We're looking at accommodation and removing local advertising from the program. Table 7 is going forward as a program which sits at $409,000 in the 3-year program, of which NZTA contributes $173,000. So that's a summary of the report. If I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Kane. Thank you so much. Questions for Kane? Councillor Johnson.
Thanks, Kane. Yeah, it's really sad to see that the subsidy's been pulled back, and I think we were anticipating that anyway. Just a quick couple of questions. Wairarapa Road Safety, you do a fantastic job, or an NGO, so I'm assuming with this news that they'll put their hand up for other local trust funding, because I believe there's an opportunity there, especially considering that a lot of their programs are educational. So I just hope, Bruce, that someone's onto that, and I'm sure you are. You might want to respond to that. But the other thing I just wanted to say, I noticed that in year 2 the CBD upgrade will be affected, and I know that some of the work has to be done. So if you could just explain, you know, how people talk about the nice to haves and the must to haves, what work has to be done there, and whether there's a 288k shortfall, what the implications there might be. I don't know if you do. Bruce, do you?
I'll let Bruce answer the first one, because
opportunities for other funding sources, because you guys do a fantastic job. Yeah.
Very much. Shall I just?
Yeah, Bruce. Yeah. Thank you, Bruce.
Kia ora koutou. Thanks for your question, Councillor. Yeah, so needless to say, as Kane mentioned, Road Safety Partners around the motto were blindsided by this. So we're expecting maybe a 20% reduction as opposed to 61%. So immediately, and I have to acknowledge Kane for the fantastic work that he's done. And so really we immediately started looking at how we can reduce costs. So I will be bringing my retirement forward. So my colleague Holly Helena, many of you will know, we intend for her to carry on delivering a pared back program. which we think will still be effective and wide-reaching across the Wairarapa, so incorporating the 3 district council areas. So we're exploring, in fact we've just terminated the lease on an office from next month, so that will provide some more cost savings. We're looking at divesting ourselves of some ageing assets, storage, so we still can deliver a pared-back program covering all the road safety activities across all the road user groups across all the 3 councils. As Kane mentioned, the advertising will be scaled back completely. Waka Kotahi are looking to deliver it nationally. We can still leverage off the national Waka Kotahi marketing team, but we still intend to be in the schools, delivering road safety sessions to motorcycle groups, young driver groups, colleges. We can explore further funding streams. We've already done that with the award-winning driver training program, but as we move forward, we will explore further funding for certain events. For example, our rider, our Rotary Young Driver Awareness Program. It's a flagship young driver program at the Solway Showgrounds. So we deliver to all year 12 and 13s. So we won't be able to, with the reduced funding, really pay for venue hire, but as from now we'll be exploring with the program owner, which is Road Safety Education New Zealand Limited, further funding opportunities as we move forward. All I can say is that we really need certainty moving towards the end of the year. We've been in a state of flux since obviously the end of the financial year, which is the end of the 3-year cycle, and we didn't really find out till mid-August really of this reduced funding investment from central government. So just certainty really required, and next week I think I'll be accompanying Kane to the combined council meeting to deliver what's on here to the other councils. So, but yes, we will be looking at further external funding sources as well.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
Further question? One thing, Bruce, just while you're there, if you could, and this is not a question, this is a statement, I would like to, it's a really good opportunity for me on behalf of council because you are retiring, I know. Bruce, you've done a magnificent job in this road safety promotion area. I've had quite a bit to do with you over that period of time, and I think it's a really good opportunity for council to thank you so much for what you've done. I'm sure you're still going to be a part of it somehow, but Bruce, take it from us that as a council, we're really appreciative of your efforts with that Road Safety Council. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Lennox.
Yeah, just
I'll just answer the CBD question, which is the second part of Councillor. Yeah. So the CBD part of the footpath funding was still to be worked out and scoped out through an extra team. So we're not quite sure exactly how much the footpath side of things will cost. The allocation there was possibly going to be short anyway, but it's far more short now with the reduction of funding. We still need to work out where the water and that will go, whether it will go down completely as a rider main down the footpath, and therefore the whole footpath has to be uplifted and removed, or whether it's whether we can just piecemeal take out the bricks which are causing slipping hazards and things like that. So the scoping still needs to be redesigned before we land on a full cost.
Councillor.
Can I just ask a follow-up question, just quickly?
Yes.
On that. And when do you think you might have the re-estimate and re-scope back to council?
I might pass that to you.
Yeah, I would say probably mid-October.
Oh, great.
Perhaps in our next meeting.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Right, Councillor Lennox and Councillor Bowyer.
I was just going to ask, given our really close partnership with those guys, the Road Safety Council, could we look at maybe seeing if they can hot test from one of our many offices? Just to save
Holly,
funding?
I think we're looking into Holly's accommodation, which one of the options is in this office here.
Yeah, cool.
Too, yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Councillor Bowyer.
Thanks, Kane. In your Table 2 initial footpath program allocation, professional services, what are they?
So when we renew an asset, we have an internal professional business unit that gets subsidised by the government at 56% and 44%. So my wages, my team's wages, is subsidised for work that we do in the renewals and capitals component of our program. So that includes footpath renewals.
Thank you.
And roads and other things as well.
Any further questions for Kane? Thank you. Now the recommendation is on page 257, which is basically to receive the information. Somebody prepared to move that? Move Councillor Holmes, seconded Councillor Lennox. Any further discussion? Councillor Goodwin.
Yeah, this is certainly just landed on our desks, all our desks, I presume, in the last few days. And there's lots of information we're waiting for, the CB, etc. And there's so much uncertainty that I'm aware that councillors often run the risk of we get to look at the footpaths budget or this or that, but our job is to take a high strategic overview. And I'm wondering that we've got a priorities meeting scheduled for, I think, 6th of November, and we've got a council meeting 30th of October. So somewhere around that time, I think that I would like to have a look at some of our priorities, which may have to change. We're aware that we're probably going to be spending considerably more money on waters than we do at the moment. And so in the last couple of months, since Council made a decision on $44 million worth of what some would call soft projects, there has been a lot of change. And I just think that with the uncertainty that is around us, that we should have a little pause on them and look at that at the end of October, beginning of November, and just maybe reappraise some of our decisions. Because I've got a fear that the way I look at the accounts, and it may be wrong, is that we could be looking at, in the next 7 years, a doubling of rates. And they last doubled in the last 13 years. And if rates are going to double so fast, and I'm not seeing much sign of certainty of it slowing down, if that's going to happen, I think we're facing two choices where down the track we're going to be rating people out of their properties, or the other choice is that we spend a bit more time prioritising our activities so that we don't rate people out of their properties. So I'm just, I'm asking for a bit of a pause, a cup of tea if you like, on those other projects, and that we have a bit of a more in-depth on them at the end of October, beginning of November. And by that time, we will have a bit better information on, for instance, Three Waters and a few other things.
Thank you, Councillor Goodwin. Any further discussion? Councillor Alena?
Yeah, I'd actually just like to support Councillor Goodwin in that his suggestion to have a pause. Prior to the meeting, a few of us were having a similar discussion, and there's a number of things facing local councils that are coming at us, and there's a number of things that are probably coming at us that we don't know about, given some of the recent, very sudden changes. So, climate change, adaptation to climate change, road funding cuts, Three Waters or the water, local waters done well.
and I think we need to have a high-level view of what's coming at us and what that actually means in terms of this council going forward, and clearly trying to identify more effectively our priorities so that the core business of council is not neglected. So I'd just like to support council.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll put the, Tim? Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. I'd just like to say I also support what Councillor Goodwin has shared. We do face considerable uncertainties now, even more so than when those decisions were made earlier this year. And I feel that it would be, we're not serving our ratepayers if we don't acknowledge this information that's come to light today and all of the information that's recently come to light to all of us about water infrastructure and what we could be facing.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any further? Okay, I'll put the recommendation, which is to to note the information provided in the report. It is moved by Councillor Holmes, seconded by Councillor Lennox. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We now move to the Maori activity report on page 281. Sorry, we've gone past that.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if maybe Kim, would you sort of communicate with us on that or come back? Or how do you see a way forward?
Yeah. No, we can certainly come back and do our priorities meeting, which is in November. But unless there's a council resolution, we're not going to pause any of the work on the library, nor Waiata House, nor the demolition, or the dog pound, or that continues on. So, but obviously we'll, in November, we'll re-meet with the council here, discuss priorities, but also noting that we'll have an LTP or an annual plan discussion, which I think is in November, for that one, around November, so we can align the two together.
Thank you. Okay, we now move to 281, which is the Maori activity report. Leanne is not here, so we're going to take the report as read, and I take it that staff will try and answer any questions if you do have them. So, yes, Councillor Johnson.
It's a shame Leanne's not here, seeing as we're celebrating Te Wikio today. Just a question which is to do with page 283, where it says about additionally staff proficient in Te Reo Māori will attend. But I'd just be really interested to know how many staff we do have. That would be good. Yeah, don't need to answer it today. Yeah, because we're encouraging people to be bilingual, so it'd be really interesting to know how we stack up. Thank you.
Any further questions on the activity report? Joe, Robin, you got nothing to say there? You happy with that? Yep. One of the things I'll comment on is that I commented on at a meeting we had just yesterday with the Ngāti Kaununu big boss that's just been appointed, who I must say is a very impressive guy, and I think things are going to work out well for council there. The naming, the Awa names, and I see where they're looking to change, to look at possible changes of names for various things, and it was mentioned that the parks could be one. That I just feel myself personally that there is also, we've always looked at perhaps recognising some of our people around here who have done great work and who haven't been recognised. So whilst I'm not saying that I'm not in favour of names being changed to Maori, to reflect Maori, I think too that there's an opportunity for us to look at perhaps giving people who have done good service for the community recognition as well.
The Gary Careful stream.
That's dry.
Okay, somebody.
Just my understanding, referring to that Awa names, I think it's about putting 4 macrons on existing names, not changing names. So the pronunciation is improved.
Yeah, you're right.
Reading that, but I couldn't.
Yeah, and it's just a discussion we had. It was mentioned that some might go a little bit further than that. But anyway, that's just my point.
Could
yes,
I just
Councillor
say that
Robin.
conversation with macrons has always bored me.
Thank you so much, Robin. Have we got a mover that the report be received? Moved Councillor Johnson, seconded. Councillor Tudor, all in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's now been suggested we have a 5-minute break and then have a biscuit. So we will do that.